The Las Vegas Raiders are gearing up for a significant matchup against the New Orleans Saints, and there are plenty of updates surrounding this game. There's a lot of buzz around Antonio Pierce, Mike Vrabel, and the potential candidates for the Raiders' next head coach. We'll touch on that later. Also, Brock Bowers is on the brink of making history, and we'll wrap up by discussing him briefly. But first, let's dive into the injury report and preview the game. Former Raiders quarterback Derek Carr, now with the Saints, is sidelined for this game. This matchup has been in the works since the Raiders moved on from Carr 2 years ago. At that time, many speculated how the game would play out once Carr returned to face his old team. If both the Raiders and the Saints had been in playoff contention, this could have been a crucial game with high stakes. Imagine Carr coming back to face the Raiders, possibly with the chance to derail their playoff hopes. However, both teams have struggled this season, and neither will make the playoffs, so the game doesn't hold the same weight. Carr's absence is significant for the Saints. With him leading the offense, the team would have been much stronger. But it's not just Carr who's out. The Saints are also missing star running back Alvin Kamara and key players on their offensive line, including starting guard Andres Pete and center Eric McCoy. These injuries could impact their performance, but they still have a chance to compete. For the Raiders, though, there's an interesting dynamic at play. While many fans may want the team to lose for better draft positioning, there's also a real possibility that the Raiders could win this game, and that could have major consequences for their draft stock. A win could push the Raiders from the current 6th overall pick down to 9th, which would be a significant drop. Given how important this draft is for the future of the franchise, it's a tough scenario for fans who are rooting for a higher pick. The Raiders' recent win against the Jacksonville Jaguars moved them down from the number 1 spot to 6th. If they beat the Saints, they could slip to 9th. However, the draft order is still fluid. The Jaguars and Titans play this week, and the remaining weeks could see other teams shifting positions as well. There are still several quarterbacks expected to go in the top 10 to 15 picks, so the Raiders may still have a chance to secure a top-tier quarterback, even if they don't end up with the first pick. In the end, while the stakes for this game are somewhat lower than expected, it's still an important one for the Raiders' future, whether they win or lose. The matchup between the Raiders and the Saints is shaping up to be interesting, especially with both teams dealing with key injuries and changes. The Saints will be starting a rookie quarterback in place of Derek Carr and will also be without their star running back, Alvin Kamara. On the Raiders' side, starting guard Jordan Meredith is out, but Jackson Parr-Johnson will step in to replace him. Center Andre James will once again start, and overall, the Raiders are relatively healthy going into this game. It's an intriguing matchup, and while both teams are out of playoff contention, there's still plenty to evaluate. One of the key things to watch will be the development of younger players. Defensive lineman DJ Glaze, for example, will have his hands full facing a strong Saints pass rush. Aiden O'Connell, the Raiders' quarterback, is another player to keep an eye on. Though some fans are already critical of him, there's still a desire to see what he can do in these final games. Even though the Raiders aren't scoring as much as fans would hope, under offensive coordinator Scott Turner, it's still a chance to evaluate who can contribute moving forward. In addition, some players are starting to break out, like defensive lineman Clon Jason. Andre Carter, another young player, got limited snaps last game but showed promise. He'll likely play more in the upcoming game, and it'll be interesting to see how he fares in a bigger role. He looked good when playing for the Vikings, so there's hope he can bring that same energy to the Raiders. Switching gears, there's some surprising news about head coach Antonio Pierce. NFL insider Deanna Rini, who works with The Athletic, reports that sources around the league believe Pierce could be fired in the coming weeks. Rini's report suggests that the decision could come after the final 2 games of the season. This rumor is fueled by Pierce's own comments about the team's future, particularly when asked about the possibility of getting the number 1 overall pick. He deflected the question, saying it was up to general manager Dave Ziegler. It's clear that there are growing concerns about Pierce's future with the team. Mark Davis, the Raiders' owner, has also hinted at the possibility of making a change. Given his comments at a recent owners' meeting, it seems likely that Pierce's tenure with the Raiders could be coming to an end. While some may argue that Pierce deserves more time, there's a valid point to be made about the need for a head coach who can call plays and lead the offense. The best teams in the NFL are often those with strong, offensive-minded coaches, and if the Raiders want to turn things around, they may need to make a change at the top. A head coach who can shape the offense and lead for the long term is crucial for the Raiders' success. Whether that's Pierce or someone else remains to be seen. There's been some buzz about Mike Vrabel potentially becoming the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. According to some sources around the league, there's a growing belief that Vrabel might be heading to the Raiders. This rumor is fueled by his connection with Tom Brady, as the two are former teammates and have known each other for years. With Brady now a minority owner of the Raiders, some see this as a possible pathway for bringing in Vrabel, especially since the team may decide to move on from Antonio Pierce, who has had an up and down tenure. While I'm not completely opposed to the idea of Mike Vrabel as head coach, it's important to consider the context of his success with the Tennessee Titans. Vrabel's coaching success has often been tied to the offensive coordinators he's worked with, which raises some questions about his ability to sustain long-term success without strong offensive leadership. A similar issue faced the Raiders this year when Pierce's decision to hire offensive coordinator Mick Lombardi was seen as a key factor in the team's struggles. Looking at Vrabel's tenure with the Titans, we can see how his coaching relied heavily on his offensive coordinators. In the 2 seasons before Vrabel took over as head coach, the Titans were 9-7 both years. Under Vrabel's leadership, the Titans also went 9-7 in his first 2 seasons. The difference in those first years was the offensive coordinator. In his first year, Vrabel's hire was Matt LaFleur, who later became the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. LaFleur helped the Titans achieve a solid offense, ranking 15th in points that season, which contributed to the team's respectable record. After LaFleur left for Green Bay, Vrabel replaced him with Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator. Smith helped the Titans achieve top 10 offensive rankings in both of his seasons with the team. Under Smith's leadership, the Titans had a breakout year in 2020, going 11-5 and making it to the AFC Championship game. However, the offensive success started to decline when Vrabel hired his third offensive coordinator, Todd Downing, in 2021. While the Titans finished the season 12-5, their offense dropped to 15th in the league, signaling that Vrabel's success was largely influenced by the offensive coordinators he had in place. This inconsistency raises questions about whether Vrabel can build a sustained, top-performing offense on his own in Las Vegas. So, while Mike Vrabel's coaching experience has been successful, much of it has been shaped by the offensive coordinators around him. If the Raiders hire Vrabel, they'll need to ensure they bring in a top-tier offensive coordinator who can help build a balanced, high-scoring offense to complement Vrabel's leadership. Without that, there's a risk that the Raiders could face similar struggles to what Vrabel's Titans have experienced in recent years. In the 5th year of Mike Vrabel's tenure as head coach of the Tennessee Titans, the team's offensive struggles reached a new low. With Todd Downing still serving as offensive coordinator, the Titans found themselves with a bottom 10 offense. Vrabel made the tough decision to fire Downing, hoping to turn things around. However, the team's performance didn't improve, and Vrabel was ultimately let go in the middle of the season. This highlighted an ongoing issue in Vrabel's coaching career. His success has often depended on the effectiveness of his offensive coordinators. This is a challenge that Antonio Pierce is facing as well, as the Raiders' struggles this season can be partly attributed to their offensive coordinator choices. If the Raiders had been able to hire an offensive mind like Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, or Sean McVay earlier in their coaching searches, the franchise might be in a much stronger position today. These are coaches who not only excel at running an offense, but are also able to build a team around that system, making them extremely valuable as head coaches. In contrast, when teams like the Raiders or Titans fail to secure a strong offensive coordinator, their success becomes dependent on that coordinator's performance, which is a risky proposition. Looking at other coaches like Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions, there's a strong example of a head coach who found success thanks to a talented offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. However, there's a looming concern that Campbell's success might not last if Johnson moves on or if he can't replicate that success with another coordinator. It's hard to imagine that kind of offense continuing without a top-tier offensive mind leading the way. This underlines the importance of having a head coach who can manage and build a strong offense. As for the Raiders' coaching situation, I'm not completely against the idea of hiring Mike Vrabel. If it comes down to choosing between Antonio Pierce and Vrabel, I'd lean toward Vrabel, given his track record. But in the long run, the Raiders should prioritize hiring a head coach who has an established background in running an offense, someone who can develop a quarterback and lead a high-powered attack. This might be the best path to sustain success for the team. Now, shifting focus to some exciting news, rookie tight end Brock Bowers is on the verge of making NFL history. Bowers, who has impressed in his first season, is just 10 yards away from breaking a 60-year-old record held by the legendary Mike Ditka. Ditka set the record in 1961 when he caught 56 passes for 1,076 yards as a rookie with the Chicago Bears, a mark that had stood untouched for decades. Bowers is poised to surpass that yardage record, which is a remarkable achievement for any rookie, let alone a tight end. But that's not all. Bowers is also set to break the rookie record for most receptions by a tight end. This is a rare feat, as tight ends don't usually rack up over 100 catches in their first season. Puka Nacua set the rookie catch record earlier this year, but Bowers is now on track to surpass him, marking an incredible milestone for the young tight end. It's clear that Bowers is making a major impact, and his potential seems limitless as he continues to break records and establish himself as one of the league's brightest stars. Brock Bowers is making a name for himself in his rookie season, and he's about to break not just one, but two impressive records. The first is the all-time rookie tight end receiving yards record set by Mike Ditka over 60 years ago. Bowers is just 10 yards away from surpassing it. On top of that, he's also set to break the rookie record for most catches by a tight end, a milestone previously held by Puka Nacua with 105 catches. Bowers is only 5 catches shy of breaking that record, and he's on track to achieve both feats in his very first season, which is absolutely remarkable. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure about the Raiders' decision to draft Bowers. Tight ends typically take a few years to really develop and make an impact, so I was skeptical about bringing one in so early, but Brock Bowers is different. He's not just developing. He's already one of the best in the game. His ability to break tackles and gain yards after the catch is unlike any tight end I've ever seen. If he played as a wide receiver full-time, he would still be one of the best in the league. Bowers has an uncanny ability to make defenders miss and power through tackles, something we rarely see from tight ends. For example, Darren Waller, another talented tight end, is known for his athleticism and ability to run sharp routes. But he didn't break tackles the way Bowers does. Even current top-tier tight ends like George Kittle don't have the same physicality and sheer power that Bowers brings to the table. He's a game changer, and I think we're witnessing the emergence of a truly generational talent. The Raiders' decision to draft him now looks like a stroke of genius. Bowers is on track to become one of the all-time greats, not just as a tight end, but as a football player overall. I'm excited to see him break both records in the next game, and I believe his future is incredibly bright. If you're a Raiders fan, it's hard not to be excited about what Bowers will bring to this team for years to come. Let me know what you think about his performance, Antonio Pierce, and the upcoming game. I'd love to hear your thoughts.